Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, or how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business through to the end consumer, or how to go about finding an investor if you're ready for that aspect. Bottom line is we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important aspects of this journey to establishing and growing your brand. Tracy and I have been doing this a long time. We've made a lot of mistakes, and we've done a few good things, so we're here to help you. Please follow our podcast on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a review, and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. Tracy?
Bruce and I have been involved in consumer packaged goods commercial operations roles for over 30 years. We define commercial operation functions relating to sales, marketing, trade marketing, broker and distributor management, agency selection and management, new product development, brand acquisition and divestitures, and customer management. We also invite on our episodes friends and former colleagues from all aspects of the Road to Retail process to come on the show and offer their opinions and experience. Again, we encourage you to subscribe to our iTunes or Spotify channel at Road, 2 Retail.
Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Road to Retail. Thanks for joining us today. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. And Bruce, tell us a little bit about who we've got today.
Well, good to see you again, Tracy. And today we have Brandon Pogue, who's one of the founders of the hot brand TruLabs, a hydration drink. And Brandon's going to teach us and tell us about his journey that he's on right now and holding on for dear life as they're growing so quickly. So Brandon, thanks for joining us. And why don't you give the group here a little background on how you got to this seat? You know, what have been your career travels along the way?
Yeah, sure. I think it's interesting, it's how you get into these spaces. It's not really the way that you would draw if you were in college. Here you are 4 years undergrad and you're getting a science degree from Texas A&M. And then I get into construction industry, which our family business had been in for 30 years. My parents got to have a construction company that has been rather successful. But I was in there for about 2 or 3 years, and then I broke out and started a commercial real estate company. And it was a boutique shop. We had a few guys working in the shop, and we syndicated deals East Coast to West Coast with commercial real estate. But one of my clients was actually in this manufacturing space of supplements. And what was really interesting is kind of doing the industrial lease for him. We got to see behind the curtain about manufacturing and what that looked like. At the same time, on the other side with my family, my wife and I were going through some health issues in our mid-30s where we really found the benefit of holistic medicine using naturopath kind of doctors. And it was like these two worlds all of a sudden sort of to collide. And we found ourselves like right in the middle of this thinking, wow, we're getting to see the manufacturing space of supplements, and at the same time also coming into things that we desired to see in the market. So the big thing is that all the natural doctors and the hippie doctors that we went to, all the doctors you go to, Bruce, that the natural stuff that they told us to take, if it was oral and it wasn't a pill, it tasted horrible. And I'm like, why would natural products taste horrible? God made fruit tastes amazing. Why can't natural products taste more like fruit? And so we had this kind of idea, said we need to create natural, really high efficacy products that taste really, really good. And that's really where the birth of TruLabs started.
I love that. What a great story. What a great story. Bruce, anything to add there?
Nope, we're just glad that Brandon's carved out the time today. Tracy, why don't you kick us off?
Absolutely. So Brandon, CEO of a small emerging brand, that's our audience today. So tell us about, how you know, what's your best advice to a small emerging brand watching today? What would you give them? And the second part of the question is, did you, when you first got started, did you just stay with the plan and said, this is the way we're going to go? Or did you find yourself having to pivot, as we call it?
There's so many questions there, so you may have to do a
No,
follow
that's
up on
okay.
that. What's interesting about that is when we first started, we really were more in the sports nutrition, sort of the pre-workout space. I was a competitive athlete in the CrossFit space, and I really enjoyed, kind of defining and seeing what the body was able to do in my 30s, and I just wanted something that I thought a lot of the people that was in our community would be able to benefit from. And the first product we launched with was a pre-workout system. So we had 4 different versions of pre-workout, and you would rotate through it, and it was highly effective, but it was really hard to explain to the customer. And I think one of the biggest things that we've had to figure out is like, how do you define what you do and keep it really, really simple? Because people aren't going to spend the time, and they don't have the mental capacity to figure out what your product is. You have to basically tell them in as simple of terms and as fast as possible. And that was one challenge that we definitely saw getting into this space. So we had a pre-workout system that we developed. We had an energy product that we developed for the day. We had a sleep product. We had this hydration product. And now we've got a number of other products that we've developed past that. But what was interesting was to see how these products were sort of, taking off. And so you'd see one take off, and then you'd see the other one get bigger. And then when we launched hydration, it just crushed everything else. And so for me, like my pre-workout system, I thought that we did was so good. And I love it so much, but we had to really kind of say, look, the market likes it, but they don't love it as much as hydration. And so when we had to pivot, where the market was going to make sure that we're doing what's best for our customer, right? As a founder, you never want to say that you have a product that's an ugly baby,
No,
right?
my baby's beautiful.
My baby's beautiful. All of our products are great. Everybody needs all of our products. But really this year, we've gone away from that pre-workout. In fact, we're selling through the rest of it right now. And I don't know, we'll bring it back maybe eventually, but because of the capital requirements of being a small business and the way we're growing, like if we're going to spend $250,000 on a certain product, we're not going to spend it on the one that's the slowest to sell. We're going to try and do the one that has the quickest turns and that has the most impact to the bottom line. Because, I think one of the questions you had for me was, how many investors do you have? How have you raised capital? My wife and I, we've done this on our own. We're 100% owners. We haven't done a raise. We've leveraged everything to the hilt because we're betting on us. Like we feel that God's given us this plan and this idea to really help people through our products. And right now at this point, we haven't taken on any outside capital. So we have to make sure as a small brand, and I say small brand, we'll do probably $10 million this year in sales. So we're starting to get some scale, but we have to make sure that we put the dollar in the best place that it has a chance to grow, and not in a slower moving product, but in the faster moving product.
So a couple of things there, Brandon, that, Tracy and I have heard before. So first off, folks, Brandon followed the market instead of forcing the market to follow him. So he abandoned the original plan, which may or may not come back one day. The market had said, boy, we like hydration, and that's where he went. And for longtime listeners of the show, recall back to our episode with Doug Hall, who's a new products guru. Doug always says, make sure the consumer understands your product. So if they don't want it, it's because they don't need it, not because they don't understand what you're selling. So that's another really great point that Brandon just reinforced. So Brandon, you went down this path of touch, but let's go a little further. You guys are growing really nicely. Hydration's been a bit of a really hot category these last couple of years. it does not want for competitors. So how do you differentiate your product versus some of the other ones when you go to the Walmarts or Kroger's that you see on the shelf, or that, I fancy myself an athlete, although maybe I'm the only one who does, but I get emails about various hydration products. So how did you guys carve out your own corner of the universe here?
All right, so that's a great question, and I'm going to come back to it. But I also want to say one other thing. But we, ask me about the roadshow later, and then I'll come back to what I was going to say. How do we differentiate in our product in this space? It's actually super easy for us. Our product was developed based on a study that came out of Asia with these steel workers, and there was 1,200 steel workers that were sweating in a fire retardant suit for 8 hours a day. And they would sweat for 8 hours a day, and after doing this for a period of 1 year, they would either develop high blood pressure or heart disease. And so the company that they were working for said, why are we making our people sick? Because after 1 year, all of these people have to be on prescriptions for the rest of their life. And they said, we're killing our people by the conditions that they're in. How can we help them? They bring in a group of scientists to analyze their sweat every night. And they find out that there's 15 ingredients that they're losing after, for 30 days, they analyze their sweat. They found out there's 15 ingredients in sweat, not 3, not 5, not 8, not 9, but 15. They found that chloride was the number 2 ingredient lost in the sweat. Everybody always talks about salt. Some people talk about magnesium and calcium. If you don't have chloride, you lose as much chloride as you do salt. Okay?
Wow.
So they find out what they're losing in their sweat, and they go and they feed these to these people at their dinner every night. And after feeding these 15 ingredients, they start to find that these people begin to get well, and that they come off of their prescriptions because their body didn't need them anymore.
Interesting.
Wow.
So we say that we're the only complete hydration product on the market because that's what we took the study and used that and converted it for TruLabs, and that's how we made TruLabs Hydrate.
So scientific based, fact-based.
Scientific based. But here's what's really cool. We have a comparison chart that we use, and we show, look, here is this brand, here's this brand, here's this brand. And we don't badmouth anybody. We just show them, these are what they have in their ingredients as per their supplement facts or nutrition facts. Here's what we have in ours. And when people see that chart, they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And the customer or the buyer or the merchant, within 5 seconds after seeing that chart, they know that we're different. But then they taste our product. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's not just the best one for you. It also is the best tasting one on the market. So I say this, we get our first sale based on our science and our research. We get the next 100 sales because of the flavor and the taste and the experience of the customer. So this is really cool. When we track our online sales and we set up a subscription with somebody, if they come to our website and they set up a subscription for our direct to consumer business, the average customer stays with us for 426 days.
Wow, that's impressive.
And the only reason that they cancel for the most part is they're like, oh wow, I can find your product in Walmart. I can go to Meijer. I can go to Giant Eagle. I can go to Discount Drug Mart. I can find your product close to me, so I don't have to wait 2 or 3 days to get in the mail. Retail has really opened that up for our customers, and it's helped. And I think this is the coolest thing about it. If you just take Walmart, and we had 4 SKUs last year in Walmart, now we have 7. But if you take all the stores that we're in and you were to take that, just take that 24 inches or whatever we have, on those 2 different aisles, we've got 2.5, maybe 3 miles of active shoppers every day. Like if you were to take that across, 4,000 stores or whatever, we've got 2 or 3 miles of active shoppers every day. And so when they see our packaging and they come and they come into that TruLabs experience, or they hear about it from a podcast, or they hear about it from their best friend, the 35-year-old mom of like 2 kids is our target avatar. When she goes to her fitness class, or she goes to her church, or she goes to her friends or her book club, and she says, "Hey, have you tried TruLabs?" That is our best way to market, is by word of mouth.
Word of mouth. Absolutely. No, that's so true. And Brandon, just not to get off track too far, but I also understand just from knowing you a little bit that you're very hands-on in the product development process.
Yeah. So hopefully the camera didn't cut out. This is our lab kitchen over here, right? So if you're looking at this and not just, listening to it on the radio, we literally have a kitchen. We're on the second floor of a gym. So you can see the rig behind, there's a gym below us. And so we actually develop everything in-house. And then we tell our manufacturers, this is what we want in our product. And then, we go back and forth and do bench-made samples and stuff like that. But me and kind of the formulator, head of product development, we both work on stuff. And so we did something last year that I think we're 3 years ahead of the market on. And I am just, in fact, if you could have gone to NACDS TSE last week and you could have seen what people were saying when they tried our products, and we tell them that we have an all-natural sweetness system that doesn't have stevia and that doesn't have allulose, they're like, "What are you doing?" We have a monk fruit-based sweetening system that we developed in-house last year, and we have 5 calories in our hydration product. And the reason that we don't put sugar in hydration is because there's 100 million Americans that are either type 1, type 2 diabetic, or pre-diabetic.
Yep.
So as a hydration company, we're not going to add something to a major market that's going to inhibit these people and spike their glycogen levels and make sure that, that's going to hurt them, right? Sugar, America does not need any more sugar.
No, they don't. No, they
We
don't.
just don't.
No.
And we're not going to be the brand that brings that to them.
I love that. I love that. Well, you talked a little, kind of touched on retail and Walmart and all that. So tell our small emerging audience, as you got into retail, what watch outs, what advice would you give a small emerging brand as they, get into retail? And then second part of that is, how did you choose, where to go first?
All right. So this is the great story, and this gives me that comeback that I wanted to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Our first entry into retail. So 2020 is going on, 2021 is going on, and everybody's like, retail is dead. E-com's the way of the future. Everybody's going to get it shipped to their door, and retail's over. Right. And I kind of like had this thought in my mind, like, if nobody's going towards retail, we need to go toward retail right now, because this is like the opportunity. So during that time of like the first year of COVID, we started to try to find an opportunity to get us into retail, because I just saw it as this huge open door, right? We were doubling and tripling in growth online, and that was great, but I really saw this window for retail. So we actually got invited to do a road show with Sam's Club. And so when I say we got to do the road show, it was me, my wife, and like the 4 or 5 people that were working here, and we worked that event. We didn't outsource it. We didn't hire. We actually worked the event ourselves. And that summer of 2021, I think we hit 10 different clubs, and we would stay in the club for 3 days that summer. We would work a Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday, and then we would shut down on Sunday like Chick-fil-A, And so we would set up on a Wednesday night after the club shut down at 8 p.m. and we would try to be done, set up by about midnight. So we would set up a booth, and it was a 10 by 10 with like metal truss system with lights. We had a diffuser for smell. We had our stuff you could taste. We had our boxes you could feel, and we loved the way that we looked, right? So we were all about the 5 senses. So we go and do this roadshow, and we launch it. And I remember there was a guy named Michael Kirby and Kyle Eggers that were head of the roadshow at Sam's at that time. I still keep in touch with these guys. I think that's one thing. If you're going to get into retail, don't burn bridges and maintain relationships.
Absolutely.
That's one thing that I can say, because you never know when those people are going to pop up somewhere else in your life. Yeah. But we go into this roadshow, And our first roadshow that we launch in, we sold $8,995 in 3 days of product on a Sam's Club roadshow. Like almost 2 pallets worth of different products that TruLabs had at that time. And so I remember Michael Eggers was underneath Kyle Eggers at that time. And Michael calls me and he says, hey, he goes, I just want you to know, Kyle called me and said, how many clubs is TruLabs selling? And I saw their numbers and they almost did $10,000 on their first weekend of sales. What was crazy is that as we got our story down, we actually got better and better at sales. So our last roadshow that we did during that summer was in Bentonville. We sold $14,000 of product in 3 days in Bentonville. And that's kind of where everything changed for us. There was a guy named Stephen Owen, and Stephen and his wife and his baby at the time came by the booth, and we're in Bentonville. And he's like, hey man, he's like, you know, I see y'all are here in Sam's, but have you ever thought about going into Walmart? And man, I was like, I would love to continue and talk about that conversation. So he passes it on to you know, Shannon Allen and her team. And then Shannon, through her team, we talked for about 7 or 8 months. And man, this is a crazy story. We were, I was with a men's Bible study group. We were flying out of Durango, Colorado, and we had, you know, had 4 or 5 days of skiing and just hanging out with the guys. And I'm sitting in Durango Airport that morning, and I get an email from the merchant at Walmart, and that, you know, we had gone back and forth on all this stuff and talked about price and all this. And I get this email, and it says, Brandon, we would like to invite you into 1,760 stores, and we'd like to give you 1,760 signature wings and invite you into Walmart. And honestly, I remember this. I get my hands and I just had the biggest sports cry right there. And I called my wife. Look at me getting choked up right now. I called my wife and I'm like, babe, you're not going to believe this. We just got invited into Walmart and we're going to be in, you know, 1,700 stores. And then they were going to roll us into 3,500 stores total on our first year. And it was such a moment of elation. But then as soon as that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to make a lot of inventory. We're going to have to pay for all this.
Yes.
You know, it was like the next thing is like, as an entrepreneur, and I think if you're called to do what we're doing, and I did this 2 nights ago, and I'll tell you why. But you think, okay, this domino's got to fall. Now this domino's got to fall. Now this domino's got to fall. So we can do this and then get to the next. So there's a guy who said this. He says, when you win a great battle, congratulations, you get to go fight greater battles. Yeah. So it doesn't get easier.
Great
you just
advice.
learn how to get to fight the bigger battles.
It's called the oh yes, quickly followed by the oh boy.
Yeah. So Brandon, I gotta call this out because we talk to a lot of founders and buyers and things like that on our podcast. So would you advise a small emerging brand that the world's largest retailer would be their first entry into retail? If you had to do it all over again, would you still do that? Or would you go somewhere like a Meijer or, you know, whatever, H-E-B, somewhere smaller? Just curious.
I can't wait to answer this question. Let me tell you why. When I had told people, business advisors and other people that had been in retail before, like, oh, Walmart, they're really hard to deal with. And you better be warned. I cannot tell you how much the Walmart team has supported us and has helped us and has guided us. They have really come to us and they've partnered with us. And I would say if you get a chance to go with Walmart, do not be afraid, because they have people there that are amazing to work with. We're in 2 different sections of the store right now, and I have loved every moment of our Walmart relationship. And
that's great to hear.
They've been transparent, they've been open, they've been honest, they communicate well. I really feel like they're less corporate than some other smaller companies. Mm-hmm. They actually have this, and I think this is because of Mary's leadership in the category 40 team. They have this this call for innovation that they want to see. And a lot
Right.
of merchants are in other brands and or other flags that we go under, partnerships we create, they're scared to bring in innovation. I really feel like Walmart is innovating and they're letting people bring in things to that category that not have necessarily been proven, but they have done an amazing job.
That's awesome to hear. I love that. I love that. Bruce, anything to add there? Lots of good
Yeah,
nuggets.
no, I concur with Brandon's comments there. I mean, I've always found Walmart, they'll negotiate hard, but they don't move the goalposts. And then they do want you to succeed, because why would they want to stick their necks out to cut in a new item than to have it fail? So I think that's a really good insight. So
You know
Brandon,
what?
let's keep.
Let me interrupt you there too. They don't charge you slotting fees.
Right.
If you get an end cap, they don't charge you end cap fees. They're very fair in how they do business and conduct business. And
No.
it has been, um, it almost makes us not want to go do other retailers that are charging those slotting fees, because it's like, wait a second, why would we do that when we didn't have to do that with EDLP, you know?
That is a
Yeah.
very good question.
Yeah.
So here's another one, Brandon. So as your company and brand continue to get traction and success, how do you and your team think through expanding? Do you try to get more store doors of the accounts you're already in? Do you keep the same number of doors and try to get maybe one or two more SKUs? Do you open up a new retailer? Do you do another flavor, which is a line extension, or do you maybe go back to, your initial route and try to come up with a whole different product? How do you guys think through intelligently expanding your business?
Y'all ask really great questions. What's interesting, and I'll say this for Walmart, there was a product last year that they sort of asked us to create. They're like, hey, look, we know you guys can create great products. We're sort of looking for X. Could you maybe create it? We're not going to tell you that you can get store counts or expansion or retail with it, but would you create it and let us see what we think of it? And so we did. We spent about 4 months really trying to perfect and to bring a new product to market. And we launched it with them about a month and a half ago, 7 weeks ago. And it's been the #1 seller in that category that we launched it into. So
Wow.
you want to talk about innovation. It's really great when you have a partner like Walmart saying, hey, look, if you can help us with this product, we would actually bring it on. And they did. And it's actually been highly successful.
That's great. I
So
love it.
so it's that, but also and then I'll answer this too. Every Friday, my product development manager and we get together and we spend about 3 hours every week coming up with ideas, whiteboarding, flavors. We're probably the most innovative brand in this space, in the hydration space, because we're never really satisfied. We want to make sure that we're figuring out something. So we actually took 4 different products to TSE this week, and we got feedback from different merchants and different buyers on those products. So now that we've got those feedback, we can take and either go and redevelop it or go back and adjust the flavor or try to bring another product. But the GLP-1s that are coming out, that's all the rage right now. And trying to figure out, a lot of them will come to us and say, hey, do you have a solution for this? How can you support for, liver health and gut health and hydration health when so many people are about to be on Ozempic? I mean, I heard Costco's doing over $1 billion in that category right now.
Yeah. Not surprising.
And they're going to do $1.5 billion next year, right? So it's like, how do we support what they need? And I think for us, it's like people come to us for innovation because they know we can do it. If it's possible, we can do it. And I love being that innovative company in that space right now.
I love the partnership. It's so important. So small emerging brand people listening to this podcast, listen to Brandon. It's good and a good counsel there. So let's switch a little bit and talk about consumer demand. Tell us a little bit about what levers and tactics you're using right now to create the, brand awareness and increase purchases, and then also how are you evaluating those tactics that you're using?
So we have looked for years, there's so much noise on social media and geo-targeting and all these, commercials and the fun part about what we can do as a brand, but we know where we win now, and we win in sampling programs. It's like the old Pepsi Taste Challenge, Pepsi versus Coke. You guys are old enough to remember that back in the malls in like the 80s and 90s when they had the Pepsi Taste Challenge. If you will put a stick of TruLabs up to anybody else in the industry, I would say 95, 96% of the time we win. Like, we win. People may say like they don't like a flavor of a certain flavor. And so we've got 4 or 5 other options that they can try, and they find one. They're like, wow, this is really good hydration. And especially when you've got, 2,100 milligrams of electrolytes in one of them. We've got another one that's got 1,422 milligrams of electrolytes, which is a bunch of electrolytes. You compare that to Gatorade, it's got 200 or, 260. And so people can't believe that we have so much packed into what it is because we don't use any fillers. We don't use anything in there and I'll give you an example, brand X, which is the largest brand in our space. And their packet, which is a 15-gram packet, they had 11 grams of sugar.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's a huge stick, but you're basically just getting sugar water.
Yeah.
Yeah, sampling's always been very impactful, especially if you can find clever ways to manage the cost. Because if you have something that a consumer can taste, touch, feel, smell, to your point about setting up those first booths in your Sam's Club roadshow early on, a little bit of show business and getting it in their hands, that's a surefire way to win, especially if you have a product that can stand up to that scrutiny.
Okay, this is one thing about the road shows, and I want to go back to that. It was me and my Ford truck and a trailer and a team of teenagers that were in high school that were with my kids who were in high school at the time. And we were the ones setting up the booth. So one night we were in a store in North Texas, and we had all of our ship stuff with food because they categorized it as a food product. But the food they had shipped it with was all fish.
Oh,
so
no.
We're big on all the 5 senses, as I've already explained. But all of our product, that our pallet and the boxes, the corrugated that it came in, because we would sell through 2 pallets of product, it all smelled like this just rotten salmon. And so we get in there and we're setting up this in the booth.
Come on, Brandon, lake trout flavor. That could be
Dude,
your new
the new flavor.
Sponsored by Orvis and REI. TruLabs
Alaskan salmon and the heat flavor. Yeah, you're gonna love it.
No.
But we get in there and we've got all the booths set up and we've got the inventory behind our booth like we did, and there's just this pungent smell, and it's terrible. And so that night at like 12 o'clock at night, we decided we have to take everything out of the corrugated cardboard, and we need to go get the black and yellow plastic bins that they sell at Sam's and Costco, right?
Yeah.
So we get on our Sam's app in the middle of the night and we buy like 30 of these cases, and we undo all of our inventory and we stack it in these cases, and then we put it back in, and it smells better, but we can still smell it a little bit. And so I'm like, maybe it's the pallets. Maybe some kind of like fish juice got on the pallets. So my wife and I get on all hands and knees, like 4 hands, like she's there and I'm there, and it's 1:30 a.m. on a Thursday morning, and we're smelling these pallets on the floor of a Sam's Club. And I look over at my wife and I'm like, you must really love me. The fact that we have had a successful career in real estate. We've been very successful, but here we are on all hands and knees, smelling pallets on a Sam's Club floor at 1:30 a.m. I'm like, this girl is in it with me for the long run. And it was a really cool moment.
Brandon, entrepreneurship doesn't get much sexier than sniffing pallets for fish juice.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit here. As your business is growing, you've got a really good product, you've got science plus the taste, so you kind of have the positive double header there. when you start thinking about the selling process, Tracy and I have interviewed lots of founders, and we've heard everything from anyone can sell, which we all know is wrong, to I need a broker, to I just hired a person from a really big company. And many people coming from real big companies used to all that infrastructure and 50 years of a brand, the roof collapses on them in a startup. So how do you think about the selling function, your own team, a broker, a distributor? And if you're going that route, what's your decision tree about what you're looking for in a selling partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the greatest things that happened was as soon as we got into retail, I got that call, and the next week I pick up the phone and I call a guy named Jim McGinnis. And Jim and I had been talking because he had become a fan of ours. He's a road endurance cyclist, and he had heard about our product and he had tried it, and when he did, he didn't cramp. And so he knew that we had something really special. So he said, "Hey, look, if you ever need help in retail," he messaged me on LinkedIn. He said, "If you ever need help in retail or want to go into Walgreens or CVS or anything like that, let me know and maybe I can help you." So I called Jim and I say, "Hey, Jim, we just got into Walmart and we really don't know what we're doing." And I said, "I could really use your help." He goes, "Brandon, you're not going to believe this." But he goes, "The company that I've been working for the last 5 years just restructured me and I'm out of a job." And I got the phone call 1 hour ago, and I'm still sitting in my chair contemplating what's about to happen. And I haven't even called my wife yet. And he's like, "You call me right now." And I was like, "Jim, let's meet up for coffee tomorrow. Let's meet up." And so we brought Jim on board, within the next couple of months. So as he was being restructured out of his company, he comes on with us, and he's got 30 or 35 years or whatever experience in retail. And he helped set up a broker community across the nation because we were too small for the Acostas, the Emersons, the MPGs of the world, right? Nobody would really give us attention. So we used the little brokers that were kind of throughout America that had specialty in Meijer, that had specialty in Giant Eagle, that had specialty at Wegmans. And what ended up happening was we created a great broker network.
Okay. We had a little technical glitch, but we are back, and some would say better than ever. So Brandon was telling us about how they've faced some challenges and how they've been very creative cobbling together their broker network for their brand. So Brandon, sorry about that, but if we can pick that back up, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, no problem. So one of the great things we did was after we got Jim McGinnis, he helped us to create this micro broker network that was really nationwide. So it was different people that specialized with Meijer or Giant Eagle or Discount Drug Mart or whoever it was. But those micro brokers really had the relationships that helped to benefit and helped us flourish over the last couple of years in retail. But now what we're finding is a lot of these brokers are being consolidated, and they're being purchased by, kind of the big three, big four in the industry, the MPGs, the Acostas, right? And so now we're happening to kind of we're being forced to sort of almost choose a national brand. So I think we've got an RFP right now out, which is kind of neat that we actually have that kind of clout, because we didn't when we first started in retail. We couldn't get the attention of those guys. But now we've got the ability, because of the size and the growth that we're having, to say, hey, let's find a national partner. And what that's going to allow us to do, I hope, is to not expand our sales team by another 4 or 5x, but really have those people come around us and be our arms and legs in the different places that we're selling our product.
So this is a really interesting point, folks, that Brandon makes. First off, Tracy and I have come across many brands where they're trying to wing it or do it themselves. And kind of what we say to these folks is, why are you preferring to fail for free than hire people that know what they're doing? So in the small world category, Tracy and I both know Jim, and Jim is a pro's pro. So Brandon made a wise selection there. And he also
Absolutely.
saved a ton of time because Jim knew exactly who to call. So Brandon and his team didn't spend 6 months trying to find a phone number for someone who could help him with Meijer. So that's great. Tracy, let's press into the investor question, even though Brandon's already told us he and his wife have bootstrapped this thing, but maybe what would you look for in an investor?
Well, I think if we're going to have an investor, they really need to match our core values, right? Because I don't want just money to have money. If we and we, every year we kind of have this question: do we want to bring on investors, and how would we bring on investors? Would it be a debt play? Would it be an equity play? Would it be a certain return on capital? And that's kind of my former life anyway with real estate. Like we did a lot of investment rounds and I've seen that work out. But I think for us to grow the way that we've done, we're trying to call it profitable, controlled growth. But I add in there with my CFO who doesn't like this. I say it's crazy, profitable, wild growth because it's still like you just don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But if our core values are faith, health, passion, humility, and fun. And so if somebody was to match up with those alignments and really kind of come in alongside of us, that's somebody that I could probably get alongside and let them be a partner with us. But if they don't really match those core values, or they have, a couple of them, but not all of them, I think it would be hard to bring that person on because we need to be profitable, but I don't want to be profitable at the expense of not putting out the right products at the right time. As you're growing, you're always riding this line of profitability, bankruptcy, profitability, bankruptcy. And so like last year we lost $100,000 last year and we'll make a few $100,000 this year. But it's because every time that we get cash in, we're buying more inventory. We're spending, we spent $100,000 at TSE this last weekend, just on our booth and our people and traveling and everything else that we did. So, we're not afraid to put money back into the brand. And now, like with sampling, that's not free. You can't just give somebody a stick for free. You have to get it into their hand. You have to have them have inventory. You have to have excess inventory, which we've had a problem with that because we've been growing 2 and 3x every year.
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart, as we say, for sure.
But I think that's the fun part is that, the first night at TSE, we had huge meetings, just huge meetings the first day. In fact, they were in the first 3 hours of the day, even before lunch. I went to bed that night. I woke up at 2 a.m., which I don't always do. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about today. And then I'm like, holy crap, how are we going to pay for this? And then I'm like, all right, so if this happens, then this needs to happen. And I start running through all those scenarios like many entrepreneurs in their head, because we have so many dominoes that need to fall before the next year happens. But I think that's what I really enjoy are those complex problems, because they're really fun to solve.
Yeah.
Running a small brand, you'll never be short of complex problems, my friend.
No, you will not. No, you will not. Bruce?
Yeah. So Brandon, as we come into the home stretch here, to date, why don't you tell us a success you've had along your path here, either in your career in total or just here with TruLabs that you're pretty proud of? You've already highlighted a couple of things, but is there something else? I mean, it's hard to beat the fish smell on the palate story. I mean, that's got to be a highlight.
Well, I'll give you just a recent example. I mean, besides this being our 3rd year in Walmart, which I think is a really big success, and that team has really come around us, and that's been great. One of the biggest successes was at TSC, and it was the day of the trade show. So we'd done Meet the Market, then we had the trade show, and our booth was pretty complex this year, and it was supposed to be set up by noon on Saturday. And so the trade show starts Sunday, and it goes Sunday and Monday. So Sunday morning, we get down there an hour and a half before the trade show starts, and we have all these things. We have lights and music and 6-gallon Yetis that we're mixing. And we get there, and the guys who had set up our booth, this was the first year we had set up our own booth, it was a wreck. There was trash everywhere. It didn't look good. And what was so funny, and this was like the coolest thing, I didn't have to say anything to the people that were there with me, to my team. It's like one person went right, one person went left, the other person went to the middle. We had another person working on the front, and without saying a word, without the right hand knowing what the left hand was doing, we worked in perfect synchronization. And that booth was set up. And I'm telling you, right at like 7 or 8:59, when everybody started pouring in, we were ready to go. And just knowing that that's how my team sets up a booth, that's how my team sets up EDI platforms. That's how we set up inventory counts. Like, we have just become very efficient. In fact, Jim sent a text out this morning and he said, look, the way that we talk on our phone calls, our team meetings every week, he's like, we're really sounding like a true CPG team right now, because we will fight for the things that we believe in, but we'll also agree with what is the best thing for the company. And I think as long as we think what's best for TruLabs, like what's the right decision for TruLabs. And I'll say this, we had a conversation that was pretty tough with one of our brokers this last week, and it really wasn't handled the right way. And not by us, by the guy, and it was sort of short-sighted. And what I'm going to say about this industry, what I believe to be true in my short time in it, is that it only takes one bad instance to kill your reputation that you've done for the last 10 or 20 years.
Absolutely.
Like, it takes one bad way, and so if you don't handle everything correctly, in fact, I had another brand that told me he hasn't been invited to a store because of something that he said to one merchant at one time. And one bad conversation can lead to years and years of trying to get back to where square one was. And so try to make sure that every conversation is honest. Try to make sure it's the right thing for the retailer that you're talking to or for your brand. Because I think as long as you're true and you're not artificially creating something, you don't have to lie about something, or you don't have to force something that doesn't need to be there.
Great advice. So true. It's a very small industry. Never, like you said early on, don't burn bridges. Absolutely. Well, good. So, Brandon, we're going to wrap it up here, but thank you so much for joining us today. It was very insightful. Love to hear your story. We do wish you the best of luck going forward. And if people want to get a hold of you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, sure. I'm on LinkedIn, so it's just Brandon Pogue, founder of TruLabs on LinkedIn. I've got an Instagram. It's just BRANDON POGUE, or just message me through one of those. I check LinkedIn. I probably check LinkedIn and Instagram more than I check my email. I actually have an assistant who checks my email, because we just get so much mail and so much junk mail to that now. But those I would say would be the best ways to get in touch with us.
I love that. Well, great.
All right. Well, Brandon, thank you once again for coming on the show today, and wish you guys continued success. And to those out there, thanks for listening. Give us a follow on iTunes or Spotify. You can also watch our YouTube channel, and you can pick us up on LinkedIn at Road2Retail. Good luck out there.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.